I thought, I think I'd like to do this. And I had a couple people tell me, don't go do something that, do a job that you are involved in a sport that you love on the side, because then it will, the sport won't be fun anymore. It'll be more like work. So, but I went ahead and jumped in, and I can say I still love the sport, and that didn't affect me.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, coming to you from the Lance Chuck Camper Mobile Podcast Studio, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Hey everyone, welcome to March and welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. We're celebrating Women in Sports Month here in March, and for us, that of course means celebrating women in fishing. I have a host of extraordinary guests lined up for you guys this month, and I'm kicking things off with an absolute legend in the sport fishing industry, none other than longtime sport fishing editor Chris Woodward. Through sport fishing, Chris has recently launched her own podcast featuring women in fishing, and this is a monthly show accompanied by a special page devoted to all things women in fishing on the sport fishing website. You'll get to learn some about Chris's fishing background, history working in the industry as a female, and this new show and what's to come for the page, so stay tuned for all of that. But before we get into it, I always like to try and share a quick update on my journey. So we're hitting the road tomorrow to head back to the Key West factory in South Carolina to make some mods to the boat before the upcoming season. This is going to make it even more versatile for fishing bass tournaments on some of these lakes we're hitting up this year. And just wait until you see it. I think you're going to love it. I'm so blessed to have such a great team behind me. Big shout out to Freedom Boat Club Nashville, the Nashville Boating Center, and of course Key West Boats. I absolutely wouldn't be here without them. So while I'm there, I'm going to meet up with some of the ladies I've featured on the show in the past that live in the area. I always love to try and do that whenever possible. So looking forward to that. And from there, we're hitting the road and going straight to Garland, Texas. We're getting ready for the official practice to start for the first tournament of the year on Lake Ray Hubbard. So wish us luck. Pray we have good fishing conditions. I saw what the guys had to put up with last week on Lake Fork. Hey, I didn't pack my clam ice armor suit, so keep your fingers crossed. All right, that's all I got for now. Let's get into this week's episode with my amazing guest, Chris Woodward. Welcome to this episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. As this episode is released, today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022, and this is the kickoff of Women in Sports Month. And I can't think of a better guest to kick off the celebration than Chris Woodward, longtime editor, Sport Fishing Magazine. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, Angie. Yes, I've been in this for quite some time.
When I think a lot of people think of Women in Sports Month, rarely does the sport of fishing come to mind. I mean, we might think of like golf, basketball, gymnastics, track and field. Why do you think sports like fishing aren't really thought of?
Fishing has always kind of been, it's a participation sport, but it's not a ball sport. Mm-hmm. And when I was covering sports, the outdoors for a newspaper in Florida years ago, we always took second place to ball sports, just because it's such a spectator thing, the ball sports are. So I think that holds true whether you're talking about men in sports or women in sports. I think the spectator part of it is a key to considering it as, in the bigger frame of reference for all sports.
It's interesting. We were just talking offline about the Bassmaster Classic, and in bass fishing, I've really started to see an evolution with all our technology these days of it kind of becoming a spectator sport slowly. They've got cameramen following certain anglers around all day, and people can watch live online. So that's an interesting transition we're starting to see. And maybe 50 years down the road, it may be a spectator sport.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you were describing that to me. I haven't been to the Classic yet, but I'd like to go.
Yeah.
And I have seen some of the coverage from it, and it is quite the event. And it's, in some ways, like with saltwater fishing, it's a little harder because the venues are coastal. It's not always easy to get crowds to a location. There have been stumbling blocks for that. So certainly in the freshwater world, that might amp up here, as more and more pro circuits start to appear on the scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we get into talking about your amazing career in the fishing industry, would you mind telling us a little bit about your childhood and getting into fishing?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up in Florida, which is a great place to grow up if you like fishing. Oh, yeah. On the water initially. And I had an older brother and a father who were both very much involved in boating and my brother in particular in fishing, and just kind of went along with that. I enjoyed being outdoors, and I started to really develop a love for fishing, both saltwater and freshwater, back then, and it has continued since. So that's really kind of where I came from, and I'm thankful, and I always want to say I'm thankful for all the men who have been in my life and have encouraged my fishing, because they really were able to turn me into something that was, turn my life into something that was exceedingly fun. And I'm also glad to see a lot of women now that are promoting and encouraging other women to fish, because that's a new step in the right direction to really get women who are interested in fishing showing other women, hey, this is a great thing. So that's how I started.
Did you, as a kid, have an affinity toward freshwater, saltwater, one or the other, or a certain type of species that you'd like to go after?
I liked saltwater fishing from the get-go, being, kind of from a coastal area. Just also because you kind of didn't know what you were going to catch. From the time I was a 3 or 4 year old, I used to love to play in the shrimp bucket, pick the shrimp up and play with it. So I think it was kind of, it was mixed with a lot of just outdoors enjoyment, going to the beach and fishing, being on my dad's boat and fishing. My brother and I even had a very small skiff at our house in Tampa, which was where I came from. And so he and I would go out together. Of course, that doesn't happen quite the same these days because kids are not, 10 years old and going out in boats by themselves. But, hey, it was a different world back
right.
then. So.
Fun. Yeah. Tampa is such a great area. So many different types of fishing available. I'd love to get the chance to spend a couple months over the winter, kind of south of Tampa a little bit, but, look forward to getting back hopefully again this winter. So, had to cut it short a little bit this year, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get to stay there a little longer this time around. So that's awesome. You got to grow up in that area. So what led you to the career in the fishing industry?
Well, my career started first in journalism. I was very much interested in writing from a very early age in a creative sense. And then I was introduced to journalism classes in high school and worked on my high school newspaper, and then went to college and studied journalism there. So I was intrigued by that. I liked the camaraderie of the business, and the ability to write and express myself through writing. And so I did that for quite some time. And then when I want to say 1991, I believe it was, I was working at the Palm Beach Post in another great Florida town where the fishing is awesome. And the outdoors job opened up in our sports department. At the time, I was a news editor, and I said, I thought, I think I'd like to do this. And I had a couple people tell me, don't go do something that, do a job that you are involved in a sport that you love on the side, because then it will, the sport won't be fun anymore. It'll be more like work. So, but I went ahead and jumped in, and I can say I still love the sport, and that didn't affect me. So, so that was the beginning of that. And that's how I got into outdoors, first newspapers and then magazines.
Well, I'd say that that's probably a telling sign that fishing is a true passion for you.
Yes.
That
yes.
didn't take that away from you. So, sure you get asked this all the time, but what was it like being a female in the fishing industry back then?
Back then, it was interesting. I knew of situations, or was told of situations, where, people actually said to me, don't even attempt to write for this publication or that publication, because they don't take articles by females. But at the same time, my newspaper, the person who did the outdoors coverage before me was a female, and I was obviously female. So I found it kind of a mixed bag of attitudes, and some people were extremely supportive. Some people, it was immediate respect, and some people questioned, my abilities and that type of thing. And I did feel initially that I would have to prove myself when I stepped on a boat, whether it was showing them I could tie this knot or that knot, or, engaging in a conversation that showed knowledge and experience, whatever it was. I kind of felt like I had to do that. And maybe that was my vision, and maybe that was wrong. But I do see today, especially in talking to a lot of younger women, there's none of that. They don't feel that. They don't feel or see barriers. And that's awesome. That's wonderful. So I'm kind of trying to, kind of put that perspective behind me, because I really think things have come quite a long way for everyone, for all females in our society. We see it in all these other areas. So, while that history still exists, and obviously we see that when we look at in the 1960s and the things that were going on with leaders in the women's movement, there was need for improving the ability, well, not the abilities, but the opportunities for women. And it's come quite a ways, and I'm really happy about that. That's a great development.
Absolutely. As you were talking, I was kind of thinking probably a lot of the catalyst to that change has been the evolution of the internet and people coming out and, blogging on the sport. And now, we've got a bunch of social media influencers that people follow, that women that are doing amazing things in fishing and, sport fishing, catching these like monster fish that you see, showing people, hey, I can do it. And I think that maybe that is a big reason why we've seen that shift. I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. And someone told me in one of the podcasts I did when I started our women's section that women need to see themselves in the sport. They need to visually see themselves. That was Stephanie Badalero with RBFF. Mm-hmm. And she made that point. I said, yeah, that's absolutely right. If you don't see someone that looks like you doing the thing that you want to do, it's a lot more difficult to put yourself in that person's place and say, I can do that too. And the fact that, as you say, there are that many more influencers, the social media is out there and it's pushing these photos around to all kinds of different audiences is truly making a major change in fishing. So that's obviously a great step. I think you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned it. I want to talk about the new Women in Fishing page on Sport Fishing Magazine and the accompanying podcast that you just started recently. And wanted to know, what was kind of your motivation behind it? And I think some of it's obvious, but your motivation behind it and how it came into being.
Obviously my motivation is to encourage other women to fish, growing the sport that I love. And also at the same time, growing the conservation ethic for fishing, because that is an important part of this. As more people do fish, more people need to be conscious of the fishing environments, the estuaries, the sounds, the oceans. And the more people participating, the more they'll appreciate and want to protect what's out there. So those are key things. And I started probably 15 years ago speaking periodically about the option of bringing more women in, and the industry really wanted to expand into different wanted to add different kinds of people, including genders and races. And that was something that they were really hoping to do, was to reach out to a wider range of people. So it progressed over time. We talked about this as an emerging market, and it seemingly has emerged now. And it was a good time for sport fishing to look at the opportunity to engage a female audience as well. Mm-hmm. Because women haven't traditionally been that interested in reading magazines about fishing. We felt like we wanted to bring this out in a digital sense and to open it up and promote it in a wider digital sense, as you mentioned, the social media material. And it's been quickly adopted by everyone I work with, and I've gotten tons of great support from everyone at Bonnier Corporation, which is the company that owns Sport Fishing. And we also, one of our sales reps, Natasha Lloyd, approached AkzoNobel Yacht Coatings and asked them about this project and presented it to them. And they were so enthusiastic. They really believe in promoting the sport in a broader sense, and they saw this as a great opportunity. So everything came together, I would say, within about 2 weeks' time, and suddenly there we were. So it was kind of a long time building, but then it was, we realized this is the time, this is it, it's a moment. So it's been very exciting, and I've enjoyed starting to grow it. And what I'm trying to really do overall is there's so many wonderful projects out there, including yours, that are attracting women to the sport. And I'm hoping what we can do, and we're building this right now, is building a calendar and building a directory so we can become something of a clearinghouse for all kinds of information about women in fishing, not only the content that we're able to provide but the content that so many others are providing, and to allow women a spot where they can learn and feel feel part of a bigger process. And they can find it. They'll find in the calendar, they'll find tournaments, they'll find classes, they'll find all kinds of events that podcasts like yours will certainly be mentioning, getting links for that and mentioning who you're inviting. And, just like I said, a clearinghouse, I think, might be a good part of this process, because everybody that's doing projects right now is doing some really great stuff. And it's just a matter of kind of tying that all together.
Yeah, there is a lot of great stuff out there. And I know that's something I've thought of over the years, being able to do, curate something that supports all the different ladies out there that are trying to, get more women involved, and it's overwhelming. And so it's great to have a bigger resource like sport fishing behind putting something like that together, who might have more resources than someone like me.
Well, we'll do our best. I'm not sure that we'll do it right, but we're going to try. And, and hopefully, if it's just a stepping stone in the process, that's fine too.
Yeah.
We're just going to try to put as much out there as we possibly can.
Yeah, I'm scrolling the website now, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes, as well as the podcast, but the podcast is right at the top of the page there, the latest episode. And lots of great resources on here in different sections, tackle and gear, featuring different women in the sport, some how-to stuff. So it looks like it's going to be a really great resource for people. So I highly recommend everybody going to check that out. Thank you for having the idea and making it come to fruition. It's everything that we can put out there is only going to help. So
yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting time for the next 5 years to see where this all goes. And it could potentially become, it's a money-making adventure for a lot of us. It's how we make a living. And there are an awful lot of women that are now finding ways within the industry to make a living and to do something they love, as well as to, provide, whatever family support they need or personal support. And so it's, we might see an explosion in that. We might see a lot more women joining the marine industry. I have a podcast I'm recording next Tuesday, actually, on with 2 fishing guides. And so it'll be interesting to hear their perspectives on, what their process has been like, because I'm sure it's probably nothing like what my experience was, especially starting out in this business. And, to their credit, they're doing a great job, and they're both encouraging other women to fish and helping them, understand what fishing is all about. And, so anyway, yeah, thank you for having me and for letting me, spread this word, about women in fishing.
Absolutely. Well, we'll look forward to that upcoming episode. And before I let you go, I did want to touch on real quick our experience in Jacksonville with the Academy Sports women's fishing retreat. We got to kind of tag along as media on that event. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the second time in my life that I have fished exclusively with a group of women, and it's so much fun. It's hard to explain. It's just really, it's very different. And I came away with it. We were talking in the minivan when we were
rolling in the minivan,
and on the way back about what our takeaways were. And one of them was something that Sophia Clark mentioned to me on our boat in passing, about doing this her own way. And that kind of became the motto to me of the event, is that women do fishing their own way. And we don't have to do it the way it's historically been done. We don't have to do it the same way men do it. We can fish once or twice in 6 months and have an excellent time and not be worried about, I'm, not bringing so many fish to the dock, or I'm not, doing it. They're not, it's not achievement oriented, I guess, is probably the way I was thinking about it when we had that experience. It's an experience, in particular, rather than achievement. And that's just, it's different and interesting. And there's nothing wrong about achievement. There's nothing wrong about the way men fish versus women fishing. I mean, men love to fish and they are exuberant about it and they have a great time and their camaraderie is awesome together. So we've just kind of found a way to do the same thing in our own way.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I love that. And it was such a special experience. I hope we get to do it again sometime. And are you planning on being at ICAST this year?
I will be at ICAST.
Awesome.
Yes. I've been at ICAST. I actually did an interview about ICAST yesterday and went back and thought about how many years I'd been there, and it's been quite some time. And it's quite the show. So, and I'm pretty sure, from what I understand, that there's going to be a group of women getting together at ICAST who are in the industry to talk about what's coming up, maybe just to get together and enjoy each other's company and see what happens from there.
We're working with Debbie Hansen and BB and putting together hopefully a really fun kind of off-site event where we can just all kind of relax and mingle and figure out ways we can get more women involved in the sport, which is, an ongoing topic that we'll continue to be focusing on. So that should be a lot of fun. So I'll look forward to seeing you there. And I thank you so much for taking some time to be on the show. And thanks for everything you're doing and continue to do. And it was just a real pleasure getting to chat with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Angie. And good luck in your upcoming tournaments.
Thank you.
I hope you score big, and I'll be looking for your name online.
We shall see. I'll do my best.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.